I have prepared a poetry today. It's not a heartbreaking poetry, but uh, it's a little piece for those partners in any relationship who give up their ambitions and dreams to give precedence to the dreams of their partners and make them come true. Of course, it's an act of selflessness, and they do this of their own accord, but they need to be acknowledged for this. However, it doesn't always happen, and often the need to be acknowledged and appreciated is met with derision from the other partner, who say that they are just being complaining about the little things in life. So I've just written a little bit about it, how the other person feels and how uh, he copes up, he or she copes up. Okay. And the title of the poetry is Let Me Make Amends Now. You said I only just complained when we were together. Since this stands a reason why we part, it now remains as a lesson forever. Having learned that I was wrong, let me now make amends. Let me spell out how grateful I am to you before all of this really ends. Yes, I'm grateful for the days when you didn't care. You made clear that you were too self-absorbed to have any time to spare. You said my insecurities were just my inhibitions. As I stood there in those moments, waiting for you to show up, I realized that no one's really coming to help. It is I who needs to pull myself up. Therefore, I started to look for my former self that I now missed so much. I lifted my face for some sunshine and extended my hands for a warm touch. Having learned that I was wrong, let me now make amends. Let me spell out how grateful I am to you before all of this really ends. Picking from where I had left myself long ago, I started to rebuild, thinking wherever I needed some assistance, you will be my shield. Because to rebuild oneself takes courage, time, and words of encouragement from our loved ones. Expectant, when I turned to look up at you, you said my time was over and I had no chance. I was devastated by your blunt words. They pricked me sharp like thousand needles. While everything for you stood decisive, my life was no less than riddles. Hence, the life's venture that we had undertaken together, I will now have to tread alone before you make me feel any smaller. Having learned that I was wrong, let me now make amends. Let me spell out how grateful I am to you before all of this really ends. I had seen you chasing your dreams. I knew your caliber was massive. I had deliberated to be beside you and support, no matter how little and passive. In thinking that my love counts, I believe I made an error, because when I thought you would acknowledge, you showed me the mirror. And the mirror isn't entirely wrong. In fact, it is kindly rude. It portrayed that I need to change my impression, sounding plainly coarse and crude. Having given up flying long back to become the wind under your wings, I struggled to take my first flight. I felt like the little fledglings. And though I had to let go of who I was to see you become what you wanted, I could still muster the courage to do things, to see that I'm quite undaunted. Having learned that I was wrong, let me now make amends. Let me spell out how grateful I am to you before all of this really ends. I have been through self-doubts, through phases of days and haze, but I know I will cut through it, no matter how thick be this time of a maze. For I know that if I can assist you fly, I too can soar the skies. For all those heights you said aren't meant for me, it is my time to rise. The more I have been dragged down, the higher I feel the thrust. It is not your belief that I now need. I am driven by a rejuvenated self-trust. I knew you had my best in your heart. Behind those bitter words that you said, my heartfelt thanks to you for being my much needed real aid. Having learned that I was wrong, let me now make amends. Let me spell out how grateful I am to you before all of this really ends. Thank you. Thank you.
क्या बात है, क्या बात है. So, Anu has been joining us. Those of you who don't know her, she's a chartered accountant by profession, and recently she has come up with a short stories book also. She's a poet as well. And she has been joining for more than, I think, 1.5 years on this
Yeah.
platform. And ever since I have seen, of course, her poetry is impeccable, poetry, her storytelling, her way of narration has improved in leaps and bounds. Amazing. So maybe I request another poet, Vandana ji, to talk about Anu's performance.
Thank you, Rajesh ji. Anu, it was a really lovely piece, and I think it was more of a storytelling through the way of poetry. Yeah, so it really appeared to be an anecdote of someone, and I'm sure anyone who has been in, similar kind of a relationship would be able to relate to it. So your words were coming, quite from the heart, and I listened to everything, and you were really, telling a tale of, how our relationship started and ended.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic job. I
Thank you,
love.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anu. Anindya ji?